And live. You're on now.
Okay. That's weird. All right. Thank you for joining us. Sorry we had a little technical difficulty there for a moment, getting the Hangout going, but we'll get this started now. My name is Jason Hand. I'm the DevOps evangelist for VictorOps. I'll be filling in for Tom and Nate, who are out today. So today we're going to go through the basic features of the VictorOps platform. I'll talk about our incident timeline and the incident list, as well as our people pane. Those are kind of the three main panes. We'll go over different integrations that we currently have and ways that you can set up your own integration, as well as how you can go in and look at and modify the on-call schedules and the rotations. We'll show this all from the web application, and then I'll hop over and show you a little bit more from the mobile application, where you can do much of the same activities from mobile as you can from the web app. And then we'll switch over and we'll show you a little bit of our current reporting capabilities. Now, if you've got any questions throughout the course of this demonstration, feel free to send me an email. My email is just jason@victorops.com. If you've got a question that's specific to this demonstration, if it's just a general question, you can send something to support@victorops.com. That will be handled by our support and operations team, but either way is fine. So with that said, let's get started. What we're looking at here, we've got the three main panes. So from left to right, I'll start over here. This is what we call our people pane. And really quickly, you can see that myself, Nate Grebe, and Todd Vernon are the three individuals who are currently on call. And you can see that by this oak leaf icon that's identified next to each user. Additionally, everyone is part of different teams, and for example, I'm part of the database, DevOps, and everyone team, but I'm only on call for database and DevOps. And that's indicated by the highlighted text there. Whereas Nate, he's only on call for the DevOps team. So we've got everybody that's on our team listed here, including who's on call. If any other members of our team had been recently signed in, of course this is just our demo environment, but if anyone else had been signed in recently, we'd see some activity with them in terms of this icon here. Rather than being gray, it would show green as sort of a visual indication that this particular user has been involved or is up to speed to some degree of what's going on within your infrastructure. Furthermore, I can drill down into each user, where I can get their phone number, any other additional contact information that they may have provided. And one of our favorite features is to go in and actually take the on-call from a user. So let's say, with the example of Nate, maybe he wants to go have dinner with some of his friends. He can send me a message or send out a message to everyone through the VictorOps platform and just request that somebody take on-call for him for a short time. And that is a very easy process, and it prevents us from having to go into the administration side, into the settings, and do some changes through there. So those are the basics of the people pane. This center section here is actually what we just call our main timeline, and this is the part of the system that ingests all of the monitoring information that we're seeing from your monitoring systems. So as things happen in real time, they'll start to populate within our timeline. And you can scroll through here and you can get a really high sort of situational awareness of what's going on with your system. Of course, a lot of this is just going to be basic information, where it's coming from, what type of problem. In many cases, you might be able to diagnose what's going on, but we also provide the opportunity for you to see more information by clicking on more info, where we'll actually provide you a visual of the entire payload that's coming over. So in this case, this is what we're getting from Nagios. And we can scroll through here and see a little bit more detail about what the problem is, so that we can hopefully diagnose what's going on and then solve the problem, or at least pull some other members of our team in. So by clicking less info, that will reduce that screen so it's not taking up so much space. So this is our main timeline. It's showing not only the incidents and the alerts that are coming in, but also who the system is trying to contact. So in this case here, you can see that the system is trying to contact a number of people, everybody that's on the everyone email list here, and it shows you the actual incidence numbers that they're waiting for someone to acknowledge. So speaking of acknowledging, with regard to several of these incidents that I just showed here, or I just highlighted, Most of these you can see over here underneath our triggered section. So this is sort of our incident list where we can see the actual incidents individually, and we can actually drill down into each of them, and I'll show you that in just a moment. But while we're here, I wanted to show you, let's say that I'm being paged for this particular incident. I can come over here and very quickly just acknowledge that I'm going to look at it, and that's going to go into the timeline for everyone to see. And immediately, anybody that was on call that was being paged regarding that incident, they will stop being paged regarding that. And I can come through and I can acknowledge several of them individually, or if I feel that maybe all of these are all sort of related, I can acknowledge all of them at the same time. I also have the ability to come in here, and let's say that this one I can just tell sort of from the summary that it has something to do with the disk. And let's say that I really don't know much information about this type of problem. What I can then do is just reroute that to a different team. So let's say I feel like this is something that our DevOps team would want to look at, rather than maybe if I'm a member of the networking team, doesn't seem to have anything to do with networking. So that allows me to then go in and just reroute that to, let's say, the DevOps team. And when I hit reroute, again, it shows up in the timeline, my actions. So now it knows that I've rerouted that specific incident to the entire DevOps team. And then the system will then start going through all of its escalation policies for those members of the DevOps team, trying to reach out to them so we can get some more eyeballs on the problem. So that's the ACK and the reroute button options from our incident screen. I can also, like I mentioned, come in here and just go ahead and ACK all of them, and it's going to do much of the same. It's going to come in here and quiet the system in terms of paging, but also alert everybody within the timeline that those have been acknowledged. And so now that I've acknowledged those incidents, they've been moved from this triggered section up here where it now says 0, and they've been placed down into the acknowledged section. So we've got acknowledged, and then we've got resolved as the remaining two groups within our incident list. And so within the, let's just for this example, I'm going to go in and look at this specific incident. And here I can see a lot of the same high-level information, but I've also got other sort of timeline hits that are related to this same problem. So it kind of gives me an ability to drill down and just see a lot more information that's specific to just this one incident. And let's say that I've gone in here and I've looked at this and I've realized that I can't help with this, although this one was just resolved. But if I go in and say, help, and hit enter, what will happen is it's going to enter that into the timeline. And if I come back over here, it's also going to show up within our timeline here that I'm asking for help, and it's going to put in the incident number as well as the hashtag for that particular incident. So again, people have a way of sort of drilling down and getting to the specifics a little easier. So with that said, those are the three main sort of tiers or panes. I'm going to switch over to our mobile app real quick. So give me 1 second while I switch our screen here so that you can see the mobile application. All right. All right, let me get this out of the way here and pull up our mobile app. Okay, so what we're looking at here is basically the same information, and I've kind of got the web app pulled up next to it so we can kind of see everything that's going on and how it's sort of very similar. What we're looking at here is the main timeline, and you can see that chat call that I put out to everyone for help on that one specific incident is right there at the top. And basically all the same information is all provided within the mobile app. And just like clicking on the More Info button, what I can then do from here is actually click on this plus button and then go to Alert Details, and again get the entire sort of dump from that monitoring system as to what's going on. I can scroll through that and then exit back out. So that's the same actions that you can do from our web application. And I can scroll through here as far down as I'd like to see what's going on. Of course, this is our demo environment, so there's not a lot of action happening. If I swipe from left to right, I can then see the same thing that's over here, our people pane. And again, all the same functionality. So if I want to go into Nate and take his on call, I can do that. I can also chat with him, send him a text message. If I swipe from right to left, I get back to our list. And the same applies to everyone. I can drill down and get all their information. So that's our people pane. Now if I swipe from right to left, it takes me back into the incident timeline. And then if I go one more, it takes us over to the same pane that we're seeing over here. So all of these have been already acknowledged. And most of them down here are already resolved. But I can still drill into them and get that information, that same level of information that I'm seeing from the web application. So as you can see, all of the same functionality that we've got from our web application is available on mobile, with the exception of some of the back-end things, which I'll go into from our web app here next, actually. So I want to move this over out of the way. We'll come back in and go into Infinity there for a second. Let me screen share you back to our... All right, so now we're looking at back to our web app. So now that I've gone over the three main areas from the sort of front-facing part of the system, I'm going to go into our settings and show you a little bit more, and then we'll come back and do a few more things from this screen, and then we'll close it out. So from here, if I go into settings, this is where I can have a couple of options. I can go into schedule, I can add or modify users, we can look at the integrations, and then I'll show you reports lastly. So within schedules, this is where you essentially create all of your different teams that I showed you earlier. I was a member of the DevOps team as well as the database team, I think. So this is where you create your teams, and you can have an unlimited amount of teams in here. You just go and hit the button that says Add Teams and then add a new team. And then once those teams have been added, then you can come in and start to modify the actual escalation policy as well as the rotations. So real quickly, I'll show you some of the escalation policy setup. Again, we've got the ability to add multiple steps and then sub-steps within each one. There's no limit to the number of steps, sub-steps that you can have. From for example, from this step 1 here, we've got it set up to immediately notify the primary person that's on call. Now, all this is customizable based on how you want your escalation policy to be set up for your particular situation. But in this case, it's set to notify the primary person immediately. But it's and then as soon as that's done, I can also add another step. But in this case, after 15 minutes, it's going to then go into step 2. So if it's unact after 15 minutes, then we're going to notify another user. And of course, I can come in here and I can change this to anything that I want. It's just sort of the way that this demo environment is set up. Step 3, if another 15 minutes have surpassed and still no one has acknowledged, then we're going to actually just execute a policy. So what it's going to do is just start paging the DevOps team rather than the database team. So it kind of just moves on to the next group. And I can come in here and add another step, and let's say, maybe after another 5 minutes, we actually want to, notify another person. Maybe go ahead and notify me. We can keep going like that and adding different steps. So that's how you set up your escalation policy. Down here is the rotations section, and as you can see, we've already got just sort of a primary rotation set up where Joni is on call up until right here. On Saturday, it changes at 12:45 and it rolls over to Nate. I can come in and I can add additional rotations. I have the option of either making it a standard rotation. We just released our Follow the Sun option, and we can also allow for just sort of a custom shift or a custom rotation. So I'm just going to choose standard for this demo. And I want this to happen every 7 days. I'm going to make it something more like noon. And then when I hit Save Shift, that's now listed up here, and this is our rotation. And then I can come in and I can say who's going to be a part of that. So I'm going to say, again, myself. maybe we'll add Nate in there. And then I'll say I'm done with this rotation. And of course, I can always go back and modify this. And so now you can see I've added myself in here, kind of set it up a little wonky, but that's basically how you go in and add another shift. And then anytime I want to edit it, I can just come in here and edit that shift. So those are the basics of that. Moving on to our users, this is where all of the users are set up, and you can decide who's going to be an administrator and who's going to be just a standard user. Every person, they have different, I guess you'd call them contact methods. So in this case, I provide my phone number and my email and how I want to be reached via push notification and then email. And every user has their own, I guess, configuration on how they want to be alerted. Let's take a second and talk about integrations. So currently VictorOps integrates with quite a few monitoring services out there. Obviously there's a growing list of great monitoring services out there, and we're always looking for new ones to integrate with. But these are all the main ones that we've got set up currently, and each one's going to be a little bit different in terms of how you integrate with it. So I'll just kind of click through a few of them so you can see some examples. With the case of Isinga Nagios, in this one we just would enter in our own organization key and our ID. Of course, this is all demo stuff. If you look at Zabbix, it's much or very similar. We go to Datadog. They've just got an API key. So there's a couple different ways to do it based on what you're using for your monitoring. And if there's something that's not listed on here, we can actually help you get the integration set up. And we've actually, if I switch over here, I'll show you within our knowledge base, we've got a great article in here that shows you how to integrate with basically everything that we're currently set up to manage. And then, of course, if there's something that's not listed here, if you just work with us over support, if you send something to support@victorops.com, we're happy to help you get the setup. We understand that sometimes it's a little difficult getting the integrations running. You've got other responsibilities and other things that you're trying to do. So we're always happy to help. So this is kind of the basics on our integrations. Now let's switch over to reports. So reports is something that we're actually spending a lot of time and a lot of effort to sort of focus on building a lot of different reporting capabilities. But what we took as far as reporting goes in our first effort was the post-mortem report. We had a lot of feedback that users really needed a better way to be able to build and share a post-mortem report after some sort of outage or even a successful deployment. They needed something that was a little bit easier to use. So we came up with a post-mortem report. And the way it works, we've got a lot of just test ones in here, but I'm going to go ahead and try to just start a new one. There should be enough demo data for us to do a new one. So if I click on New Report, and let's just say webinar test, and I'm going to choose today from, let's just maybe go around noon my time through today. Let's make it 2 p.m. And you'll start to see down here within the reporting screen all of the information and all of the monitoring alerts that we were getting from our variety of monitoring services. And so basically this is just telling me everything that happened between the hours of noon and 2 p.m. today. A lot of this stuff may not necessarily be relevant, especially for a post-mortem, so we have this nice little feature where you can just come in here and remove anything that you don't necessarily want or need to share in your post-mortem. Maybe there's some duplication on some of this stuff. You can also come in and add your own notes. So if I wanted to add a note, add a note for this particular section of our post-mortem that allows us to do that. And then it's basically just a matter of coming through and sort of polishing up all of the details, adding some things, removing some things that don't necessarily need to be part of your post-mortem. And then last, I could come up here and add sort of a write-up for the overall post-mortem. So, whatever you'd like to put in there. And then once you're done, you hit Save and View, and it just sort of displays it back into a nice format that you don't have the ability to edit anymore, although you can come back and edit it later. And now it's been saved within the VictorOps reports to come back and access and view by yourself as well as other members of the team. So we like to make sure that that's always available for everyone to get to. And that's our post-mortem report. And look for a lot of new great reports coming out in the coming weeks and months. It's definitely a focus that we're working on. Last, I'm going to come back into the timeline and just show you how we have the ability to sort of pull other members of your team into a fight. So let's say I was on call and I came in here and I looked at maybe this particular incident here, and I realized that this isn't something that I'm able to resolve on my own. So what I'll do is actually reach out to someone. I'm going to find Nate in here again and say, hey Nate, and what happens, actually, I'm going to switch over and show you the mobile app screen here. Bear with me for 1 second. So if you look at the mobile app, you can actually see right here at the top the chat that I sent in. And if I wanted to, I can continue adding more notes in here. Let's say we'll pull somebody else into the fight. Go ahead and send. And so now I've reached out to some other members of my team, and hopefully they can respond back. And between the two of us or the three of us, hopefully we can solve whatever the problem is. So the idea of bringing more people and more members of your team into the fight and just getting additional eyeballs so that you can hopefully kind of reduce that time to resolution is really key, we feel like, in terms of being on call. I mean, there's a lot more to do, a lot more work to be done after you've been alerted of the problem. So we want to be able to bring you back into one central kind of screen so that you can then start digging into what's actually happening, how do we solve this, who else can help, and hopefully get you back to bed or get you back to doing whatever you were doing previously. All right, so let me switch back here. I think that's pretty much going to do it for today's webinar. I know it was really quick, and I apologize if I skimmed over anything a little bit too quickly for you. If that's the case, certainly shoot me an email at jason@victorops.com. I'm happy to answer any questions. Or if you'd like, I can go through a demo with you specifically. Maybe we can kind of go through it a little bit more in depth and answer questions with you as we go along. If you have any questions that are just sort of general about VictorOps or about anything you saw today, you can send something to support@victorops.com, and we'll do our best to get back to you as quickly as possible. And with that said, I appreciate everybody coming and checking out today's webinar, and I hope to see you again real soon.